Okay, we are now live. Hello. Good morning. Welcome, NextOppSocial family. Welcome to another live chat discussion here on the NextOppSocial channel. I am Richelle Wright Wilson. As always, I'm joined by Joanne Buford. And today we also have Tonya Myers Phillips, an attorney and leader with a lifelong history of service and advocacy on behalf of the community of Detroit, where she was born and raised. So before we jump into it, though, if you're watching with us here, either live or on the replay, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you never miss an interview, a live, or miss out on these incredible discussions we have here at NextOppSocial. All right, so we're going to get into it. Welcome, Tonya. Thank you again for joining us here today. We're so excited to have you and talk about your journey. So let's jump into it. Tell us more about yourself, your background, and because we're all about entrepreneurship, why you fell in love with being an entrepreneur.
Awesome. Well, thank you both for having me today. I'm just looking forward to having a great conversation with two wonderful hosts, with viewers, and yeah, let's get into it. So, I'm a Detroit girl, born and raised in the Motor City, and a lot of that has shaped who I am today. I've been a practicing attorney for I received my bar card in 2004.
Wow.
And in terms of working, so I've been practicing like 16 years now, going on 17 next year. And before that, I had a history of, professional work experience under my belt. And all along the way, what's been important to me is advocacy and service. During my entrepreneurial journey, as a consultant, as an attorney, as a strategist, I've always integrated community service, giving back, and particularly with a social justice element to it. So, as entrepreneurs, we have an opportunity to influence individuals. We have an opportunity to use the position that we have for social good and social change if we choose to. Now, sometimes that can be a delicate balance, but in our conversation today, I just want to encourage others who want to use their voice, use their platform, use their assets and their influence to make a difference in the lives of others in our community and in our society to do that. It is possible. So that's what I'm about. Other personal elements. I still live in the city. I choose to live in the city. Have a family, a husband, and a tween son. So we're hanging in there with virtual school and all that. But I'm a very community-based person, family-based person, and look to integrate that into business as well. I see them as totally complementary. So I don't want to talk up all the time, but that just gives you a little snapshot into my world. Mm-hmm.
Fantastic. So,
Mm-hmm.
Tanya, I did a little bit of a deep dive, particularly in your
Mm-hmm.
background in the beginning. Because we were both Wolverines, and
Oh,
I
yeah.
was, and I was shocked. Yeah, go blue.
Uh-huh.
And I was a bit surprised. I mean, I know you've always had this social consciousness, right? And I'm going to ask you to do a little bit of a deeper dive. Right? You say you're a Detroit girl. I think some of that is very unique to Detroiters, right? We have this kind of grit social consciousness that you typically
We do.
Yeah. But while I was at the University of Michigan taking over buildings and causing all kinds of havoc and making the administration's lives a living hell a majority of the time, I looked and I said to myself, my God, Tanya was quietly doing her activist thing on campus and in the community too. And I was like, I did not know that. Yeah. So I know a lot of that had to kind of inform a lot of decisions you made back then and even today. And so if you don't mind, I mean, I think this is important, right? And we talk about Detroit and entrepreneurship and success. Um, where did that social consciousness, that desire to be a change agent, where do you think that was birthed? Like, how did that come about? When you say you're a
Mm,
Detroit girl, like, what does that really mean, right? In the context of this
mm.
discussion.
Yeah. Where did it come from? I feel like a lot of it is instilled, I guess maybe three sources. Certainly family, from my mother. My mother is my hero. She is strong. She is resilient. She raised us by herself. Made many sacrifices for my sister and I. So I look at her grit, her grace, and just the amount of selflessness that she has, and I think that was passed down to me. I always admire her. Faith, I'm a person of faith, but I believe, more in the faith without works is dead kind of philosophy. Don't talk about it, be about it, you know. And then just looking around. I mean, growing up, I didn't grow up in the best of the in a nice sound little quiet neighborhood with nothing going on, So I'm no stranger to poverty. I'm no stranger to violence and just other things that happen, where you have concentrated levels of poverty and systemic oppression. So I've seen it all, but it never sat right with me. Just the sense of, why so many people in our community had to be afraid. Even as a high school student, I attended what's called a magnet school in the city of Detroit, where you have to take a test for admission or whatnot. I'm sure they have similar setups in all other parts of the country. But this one particular instance, as a high school student, just really dug it in there. We were invited to attend kind of like a exchange program with a very affluent high school in a very, very affluent suburb of Detroit. And the idea was I know what they wanted us to do, to exchange ideas, to see race had no boundaries, and for us to all come away happy and pleased. But when I visited the school, I was angry. I could not understand how I was a top student in the city of Detroit and looked at the amount of resources available to me and what my daily environment looked like as a supposed top student. And I go to this school, and the amount of wealth and amenities and privilege was astounding. And they're sitting there telling us, you're all the same, it doesn't matter. And I'm sitting there thinking, no, we're not. No, we're not. This just did not fit right with me. And I never could grasp how if one group of people play by the rules or whatnot, you can still be set behind structurally, from no fault of your own, just where you were born, what zip code you happen to live in. Could be a challenge. So that really kind of began to firm up a desire to, I think that was always there, that always kind of bothered me, but I was too young to really compute what it was that was agitating me. But from that point, I began to think, I want to structure my career in a way that attacks these injustices. If we're all supposed to be created equal, how do we change our laws, our society, the way we do business to really reflect that equality? So, that's when it kind of, I guess, doubled down for me. And, at the University of Michigan, as you mentioned in undergrad, I was part of the research program, and they asked, what do you want to research? I said, I want to research organizing in Detroit. And, start working with a professor on a community garden and dealt with all kind of interesting issues. But that is an example of how, one small example of how entrepreneurial endeavors and social justice intersects. because this was more than a garden. The leaders of the community at that time had a vision of a farmer's market, of independent commerce. I mean, agriculture is big business, nutrition is big business, and the community wanted some autonomy and a stake in that. So I worked for a number of years in helping that community organize and do a garden and a market, before myself, before it was considered cool or attractive to do those kind of things.
I like it.
Mhm.
So you have been involved in a number of endeavors over the years, right? I know you've
Mhm.
had co-working spaces that you managed. I know you've dabbled in real estate, of
Yeah.
course, your practice as an attorney. I know you're a board member of a couple organizations. I mean, you have a lot of different
Mhm.
things going on, right? On top of
Mhm.
that,
Mhm.
being a parent, as you alluded to, and all these
Yeah.
other, yes, know about that life, man. And
Right.
as well as all the other endeavors that we probably won't even have time to go into today, right? Um,
Mhm. Mhm.
if you don't mind, offer a little bit of insight in terms of how you're able to wear these different hats, manage everything, marry everything, and make it all work. You know, what does that process look
Mhm.
like for you? And how have you gone about, maybe how's that process evolved over the course of time?
Mhm. Well, I think it comes from, you have to know yourself and be true to yourself. I mean, there are some things that you can learn in terms of best practices, of course,
Mhm.
but your life is your life. You're an individual. So what works for me may not work for you, I mean, it's not going to work for you. You have to be very confident in yourself, your values, and forging your own path. So it's a centering, and you grow. Things change over the years. Life isn't static, or I hope it's not static, right? We only have one go around this. So I think you just have to have a high sense of your values, your priorities. You have to be a little bit brave, in terms of not following the mold. Because all of us are individuals. So I've always kind of focused in first on what do I really care about? What are my values? What's important to me? Because you only have 24 hours in a day. I mean, most of the time you're working a minimum of 8, 8 plus, depending on how hard you grind and what stage you are in the business, right? So a lot of our waking hours are spent working, trying to generate, income for ourselves, our family, growing your business, growing your influence. And I just feel if you're going to, or for me, if I'm going to put that much time, that's the one asset you can't get back. You cannot get back time. Once it's gone, it's gone. So I choose to use my time in a way that's fulfilling. And I believe that, again, entrepreneurship is, I mean, you can tie your values to your business, to your practice in so many ways. It doesn't have to be inhumane or all about dollars and cents, but you can infuse your values in what you do. So you start with your values, you start with your priorities, and then you recognize, again, just centering in on who you are, because no one else is like you, and if you try and emulate what someone else is doing and live their life, I just think inwardly you're not going to be fulfilled. And that's how I do it anyway. And that's a constant process. What was a priority for me is, before being a mom, things change. Now I want to be able to, go to games and, sit down and spend quality time with my son. So you wrote, as life changes, you adapt. And, that's another thing I learned along the way and would just encourage other people with. And you were just encouraging me the other day, in terms of giving yourself some room. Sometimes we can be our toughest critics. And if things are changing in life and you need to recenter, guess what? Recenter. You know, no one bats an eye when we say the market has changed. You're like, oh, the market's changed. Let me follow the market. Well, you know what? Life changes. So make sure that you prioritize and maintain your values in your practice.
So you've already kind of touched on this question a little bit as you were diving into that, but with changing, with pivoting, with evolving, and all the different things that you do and you've done and you've added onto your plate, so to speak. What are some of the toughest lessons that you've had to learn, or biggest difficulties that you've encountered while all of that has continued to evolve and change, and to be honest, adding more on to what you do day to day?
Definitely, being mindful of your capacity. That's a challenge, and I won't say it's all perfect every time. But, one thing, a person like me who's motivated to give to others a lot, I mean, you have to push the off buttons sometimes, and have personal boundaries, for your own health, for your own just peace of mind. You can run yourself ragged. So being able to set good boundaries is a challenge. I've certainly gotten better at it over the years, but how I do that is just, again, reminding myself that you have to be well, in order to take care of others. You have to put on your own oxygen mask first, So if I'm running around burning myself out, then ultimately that'll burn my business out. That'll begin to wear on the people around me, Oh, I'm sorry. It looks like my screen is frozen, but can you still hear me?
Yeah, I can still hear you. It'll probably fix itself.
Okay.
It usually does.
Yeah. But just realizing that you need personal boundaries, that's important. And that's been a challenge. And I will also say the conversation we had earlier, just giving yourself that freedom to change, that freedom to evolve is life-giving. As Joanne mentioned, I did run an office share space, something that is a little more, I guess, socially neutral. It's office space, I've worked and I continue to work with a lot of small business clients. In recent years, it's always been there, but my voice has been getting louder in terms of social justice issues, inequality and equity, okay? And giving yourself the freedom to do that, not limiting yourself to a box, like this is how I started, this is how I must remain, but giving yourself that freedom to adapt and that freedom to grow. And when you do that, I found that you're allowing other people, other just wonderful allies to come into your space, and it makes your life more full. It makes your practice more prosperous, but those initial steps can be scary. People kind of brand you in a certain way or put you in a box, and you have to be very conscious that you own your brand, you control your identity, and you don't have to stay in a certain mode for anybody. And sometimes I think we're hard on ourselves in that regard. Again, in terms of looking at entrepreneurial endeavors, we're comfortable with the market, quote unquote, changing, and you don't question that at all, but sometimes we're a little hard on ourselves with allowing our business model to change, or being courageous enough to jump into other business opportunities. So those are the two, kind of hardest things: personal boundaries, and just giving yourself permission to think outside the box, to grow, to adapt, to change. So those are, definitely, some of the top two challenges I've experienced along the way.
So you alluded to a conversation we had, I think it was yesterday. And, for me, this is something that I will willingly admit I've struggled with. I know a lot of entrepreneurs have struggled with in the past as well, or even presently. And you know, there's this pressure, like you said before, to be certain things to certain people, right? And
Mm-hmm.
I know there have been times where you may have vacillated between full-time entrepreneurship versus part-time, spare time,
Mm-hmm.
thought up jobs and
Yeah.
occupations. And, there's this perspective out there that if you are one of those individuals who's vacillated and pivoted between the 1099 and W-2 world, that you're quote unquote not an entrepreneur, right? Um,
Right.
but sometimes you have to be flexible, and sometimes you have to know when
Yeah.
to fold. Sometimes you have to know that, you know what, this isn't working
Mhm.
out. I need to move a different direction.
That's
At the end of the day, the bottom line is the bottom line. And I know you've experienced some of that. And I wanted to bring
it.
that up to give you an opportunity to speak to that for other entrepreneurs that may be struggling with that same type of conundrum.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. Like I said, life is fluid. Things change, and you have to give yourself grace to pivot. And you can do that for a number of reasons. I've done it for a number of reasons. In terms of, looking at 2006 when Detroit was going through an economic recession, sometimes you have to put the brakes on some endeavors. If you're bleeding money, you need to stop it and realign. And there's nothing wrong with that. In terms of going full time and part time, in terms of entrepreneurial endeavors. Again, it depends on you. What are your wants? What are your needs? What is your lifestyle like? There have been times where, I've been a full time entrepreneur and I've loved every second of it. There are times when I've been a full time a W-2 person. I've loved every second of it. And then there the camera's back on, wonderful. And then like now, there are hybrid stages in life, where I do both. And it depends. Again, you have to have a high sense of awareness for yourself and what you need, and those two decisions typically for me, it's boiled down into three basic categories. One, money. Two, lifestyle. And three, kind of wanting to grow and attach myself to others in the industry that I wanted to learn from. So for example, with sometimes, I've left entrepreneurial endeavors because it's like, okay, this is bleeding money. This is costing me money. It's time to pause and realign. I pursue entrepreneurial endeavors because it's like, all right, this is making me more money and this feels good. When I transitioned from full-time practice to a staff attorney, for one of the legal aid agencies, almost a decade ago, a lot of that was lifestyle. It takes a lot of work to run a business, right? And, I was a new mom and, I tried to stay at home for a little while and was like, this is not me. My mind is wandering out the door in terms of, really wanting to, get back out there, in the workforce. But, I also was not willing to commit the same amount of time, 10, 12, 13 hours a day, building and supervising and managing a business. It's like, at this point, I want to come in and I want to cut the clock off at certain times. That was just more what I needed at that time. Now, I do work for, social justice organization, but I believe in the cause, very seasoned litigators, that are strategically taking cases that impact legislation and practices across the state. And I wanted to be affiliated and learn and grow with, a certain group of individuals. But at the same time, I maintain, a consulting practice for law and social justice issues. So it's a hybrid, and it's okay to give yourself that freedom to do it, So I just encourage entrepreneurs again to look at what you want. I remember, a lot of the In our younger days, you know, people say, oh, you don't need a 9 to 5, and you can get trapped into what I say, becoming a poser. Don't be a poser. Don't come out here, trying to represent a false image. Don't do that. See what works for you and pursue that with all of your gifts, all of your talents, and whether that's full time, go for it. If that's what you want to do. If you want to do part time, go for it. If that's what you want to do. If you want to make change inside an organization, go for it. If that's what you want to do. But the bottom line is you have to be able to wake up and be motivated and be happy with where you are every day. And one of the worst things for me, at any time, and whenever I get that kind of, I don't want to say nervous energy, but just like I know when it's time to move. I know, when I feel I'm not motivated to go in, it no longer excites me. You're nitpicking about little things that don't matter. Those are indications that it's time for change. It's not a good fit for you. Maybe you've outgrown it. There could be a lot of reasons, but when you are not fulfilled on a day-to-day basis, you need to bring it in, do that self-check, and figure out what's going on. And it's time for change. Give yourself that room to change. You won't regret it. Mm-hmm.
I think that's so important, just as an amazing reminder to anyone who's listening as well. If you're currently an entrepreneur, if you're thinking about doing that, or you're hitting one of those patches, especially this year in 2020, where you feel like you can't make that change, or that it's abandoned, you're abandoning whatever, that you got to make whatever changes are necessary that are going to feel good to you. So I'm really glad that you touched on that, and not just of like, just got to see it through, whether it feels good or not. So, and I know,
right.
Yeah, I know a big part of this discussion with you today too is also talking about social impact within entrepreneurship. And I know that's like a big part of just your overall mission with what you do day to day. So I want to touch on too, what are some of the misconceptions you think that people have about the relationship between community service, activism, and entrepreneurship? How do those things blend together, especially for you? And what would you like, others to know about that?
Excellent question. Thank you for that. They are very distinct. Some of the common misconceptions, I think, with entrepreneurial endeavors, people think it's easy. You can find many blogs, 10 steps to make whatever real quick, right? It's not easy. It requires a commitment. It's a lifestyle, if you want to be successful for the long term. You don't want to be a shooting star, rise and fall, so it's not easy. That's a misconception. With activism, some misconceptions I've seen is that you feel it's bad or negative, or you have to be very outspoken. Naturally, I'm not an outspoken person. I can sit in a room and kind of look around and enjoy all the conversations people are having, and I'm fine. But it's that, at certain times and certain causes, I feel, I must speak up, So people equate activism sometimes with a task, or a particular mode, and that's not the case. And community service, I also think a misconception. A lot of times it's underutilized. I think we think of it as a project, like we'll go to the soup kitchen for this day, MLK Day, a day on, not a day off, right? And those things are good. It's better to do some activities, but community service does not have to be limited to short-term projects on certain days. Again, that can be you can have a strategic way of engaging in community service as a lifestyle and structuring your business and your circle of influence in such a way that you can make continuous impact. So yeah, those are some of the misconceptions, I would say. And for entrepreneurs in particular and business owners, I think business owners have a very unique role and ability to influence society and social change. And, giving back for a project, doing a day of service, that's certainly one piece. But there are a number of things that you can do. One important thing, and catch me if I'm talking over time, please. But you say nah.
You're fine.
Thank you. So one thing, I'll highlight a couple, but at the top of my list is diversity and inclusion. I think one of the best things that you could do, as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, particularly as you grow, you grow outside of yourself, you're bringing on a team, you have some wiggle room with your assets, is to look at inclusion and diversity. Have open doors, open doors for other people. Have people of color on your team, in leadership positions, right? I mean, that's huge. Number one, bring people along with you, especially, and this is a gripe of mine, especially if a lot of your customers or your target market or your business location are in communities of color, so have people on your leadership team, and don't do it in a way that treats them as a token, So sometimes it may take a little bit longer in recruiting. I've done recruiting, and I, have experienced conversations say, well, we don't have any minority applicants. We can't find a minority applicant. They're not qualified. We put up the job posting, and you can say that, or you can ask yourself, is my network broad enough? Am I in the right circles of influence? Maybe it's my business and my network that needs to broaden. But don't accept the fact that, or accept the notion that there are no qualified people out there, and certainly don't do the check box, I'm going to hire a minority. Don't do that. Don't tokenize people. So diversity and inclusion in a leadership capacity, I say, is number one. Make that change from within first, right? Before you're pointing outwards of what other people should do. Make that change from within. Another piece that I would encourage business owners to do is to give back. Yes, cut checks, but don't just leave it there. This is not about buying support from the minority community. Don't do that. But build relationships along the way. So, instead of just, sponsor an event and, you want to get your pictures and post it on your website and then you're gone, nobody hears from you anymore. Build relationships, think about, what kind of relationships you can develop and nurture over time that continue to invest in the community and help smaller organizations grow. So cut checks, yes, but build relationships. And then, another thing that's harder is look in your circle of influence. Do a little needs analysis in your industry and look at where inequity exists and structural barriers exist in your backyard. And this is not a one size fits all kind of practice, but look at your industry and really examine how you can be a leader in your particular industry and how you can advocate in your industry. Just one example that comes to mind is, let's look at my industry. the legal profession. I mean, there have been, I've had my fair share of times, not as much anymore because, just been out there for a little while and you begin to know people. But certainly I've been in the room and I've been the only person of color, one of the few women. And particularly when I got started, I was not recognized, or people couldn't envision that I was the lawyer. They were telling me I would go up to take my seat with the lawyers, and they're like, "What do you need?" I would say, "Look, I'm an attorney. I'm trying to sit over there, represent my client." So looking at the legal pipeline and working with law students and students of color, helping them successfully graduate, take the bar, getting them associated with internship and clerkship opportunities, and just helping them get land employment and get in the door. So that's one thing that I've experienced, but you can look across industries. Certain industries have certifications. Looking at the tech industry, why does a certain certification cost $1,000? Maybe that's a barrier. Perhaps you can be an inside advocate to lower the cost or make provisions for need. But just look around your world of influence and how you can be an advocate. And it's not easy, but you can certainly analyze it and come up with a plan of action for how your business can make a difference that lasts and make long-term impact. Mm-hmm.
I like it. So you've had a couple themes that I have been just kind of focused on as I listened to you. You said something I'm going to wrap back around to, but earlier you talked about the congruence between values and priorities, right? And it sounds like to me as I'm listening to you, you it's not just something you think about, you actually spend time like reflecting on these things and taking inventory of your life to see once again there's congruence, right? The other thing that caught my attention is you talked about the ideal of also not allowing people to control your brand, right? Taking ownership of what your brand is. Because oftentimes as entrepreneurs, we can get caught up in trying to be certain things to people to stay viable, right? But it's also very important to be very aware of what are the things that really give you energy that you really enjoy doing. And, you kind of brought in reality. Like sometimes those things might not be profitable. You might have to find something else that brings you value and energy, right? That caught my attention. And then of course, just some incredible insights you shared in terms of entrepreneurs, how entrepreneurs can give back to the community, right? Not just in cutting a check and tokenizing and buying favor, but actually making an impact. Like the one thing that really caught my attention was the way I thought about it was share your intellectual assets, right? That's your time, that's your knowledge, that's your wisdom. When you build relationships with people, you pass that information along indirectly and directly alike, right? Something else that caught my attention that I really wanted you to speak to, right? Because I know this tension very well. I know it hurt me in business early on. As an activist, sometimes you put the financial well-being and your own financial solvency to the side because there's that tension, right? That people who are financially well off may not be as connected, may not be as concerned, may not care enough. And activists will sometimes look at you sideways if you achieve too much success. Yeah. If you've it's real, right? And so I wanted you to kind of speak to that because I'm gonna give you the floor. I'm thinking about something, but I think you kind of already know where I'm going with it. Yeah.
Okay. Well, that was a lot to unpack. But I'll start from the top of the list. You asked about, I guess that mindfulness process. And, I know I've thrown that out quite a bit. And I mean, there are a lot of good tools out there. One thing that I think is essential is certainly journaling, reflective journaling. It's very, it's been very pivotal for me. Just taking time to pause, taking stock of your day, setting out your goals and objectives. And sometimes we do that in a business sense, right? You sort of, I want to earn this much money. I want to make, have this many contacts. I want to expand my business this way, but you're not taking stock and doing that same kind of inventory, with your personal life. You put that aside, right? So I'm going to exercise later. I'm going to get my diet together later. I'm going to have free time much, much later, right? But kind of, taking stock of your life, with just as much vigor and intentionality as you do with your business, because you're, as an entrepreneur, you are distinct from your business in a sense, but in order for your business to thrive, you have to be whole. So I do a lot of journaling. I do goal setting and benchmarks. And there's so many different tools and calendars you can pick up. Just find one that works for you. And again, just realizing, when life changes, plans change. I think it's the why is important. The why is important, not just looking at the what, but looking at the why. And that helps you get centered. That helps you give yourself some grace when you need to, make those changes or pivot. But you can get, depending on your personality, or with introverts in particular, you can get in your own head too much. And, sometimes that external processing, through something as simple as journaling on a daily basis and just reflecting, helps keep you centered and helps you remember the why of why you're doing this. And I think once you find your why and you understand that, there are so many ways that you can earn a living, right? We have a global economy. So the way that you came in the door doesn't mean that's the way that you need to just maintain for years. There's so many ways to be creative and earn revenue, especially living in the technology age, right? So keep that centering. And I chuckle, if we're on YouTube now, my son, he watches all the YouTube clips and memes and everything, and 10 years ago, you would have never thought that people can earn a living doing pranks on YouTube. You know what? But they do, and they're happy, and I'm not mad at them, right? So
Right.
when you find your why will connect you to the prosperous path for you. So I would say just erase that mindset that there's only a narrow channel or a couple of paths to prosperity. Find your why, and then your why will connect you to a path that is prosperous, but not just for your wallet, but for your whole person, And the second piece, activism, not being accepted, that you're not keeping it real. Oh, yeah, that could be a touchy one. That can be a touchy one. But I think, part of it, one is, don't get offended. There are very few things that I take personal offense at, because I want to get in the other person's skin. I want to see with their eyes. I want to feel how they're feeling, and see the world from their perspective. So if someone throws shade, like you're not connected, you're bougie, or whatever, different things, sometimes that comes from hurt, right? And there are a lot of instances where corporations and profitable people have and continue to prosper upon the exploitation of more vulnerable persons. That does happen, really. So you can't discount that. And realizing that, I don't discount other people's experience or lived experience. So, I understand it. I don't get offended by it. but you just continue to, demonstrate through your works, through your continuous, reliable lifestyle of good deeds and advocacy. So trust is built over time. I don't think anyone has, we all want to be accepted, right? Nobody wants to be rejected, but you have to earn trust, and it comes over a period of time. And there are different, it's not about you, it's about what that other person needs to feel comfortable with you. And that's just how it is. So just like you wouldn't want anyone to rush you in your process of vetting, I don't think it's appropriate to rush other people. So yeah, you see it. It is what it is. But I think if you're consistent, reliable, over time, people see you, they give you your respect, and the circle of trust is open. But sometimes you have to wait. It's a process. It doesn't happen overnight. Everybody doesn't accept you with open arms, but if your motive, if it's not about you, if you're really trying to walk in relationship, and be in solidarity with individuals and with community members, you'll let it blossom over time, which again gets back to, don't do things to kind of stoke the fire, like come, drop a little check and it's like, okay, can we take a picture? Don't do things that can cause other people to look at you sideways. Don't bring it on yourself either, right? Mm-hmm. So, yeah, it's a balance, and relationships are important, and they're developed over time. So be patient. Someone might misread you at first, but be patient, be consistent, and they'll recognize. Mm-hmm. So I hope I delved into it. I got the different points, but it's real. Mm-hmm.
You crushed it. You crushed it. Mm-hmm. So we have the pandemic, which is impacting business owners in so many different ways, right? And I'm always careful about how I characterize what's transpired during the pandemic, because you have small business owners who are winning, who are doing exceptionally well, who are doing better than before the pandemic. And it's important that we recognize those business owners, right? That there are success stories taking place. I'm a big fan of that, because I honestly believe if Mr. or Miss Success is knocking on their doors, that means it may knock on yours as well, right? On the other hand, we have business owners that we also have to be real about. I mean, for me, the statistics are staggering.
Definitely.
I think I was doing some research this weekend in preparation for this webcast, and I mean, they said something upwards of 60 million small business owners. A lot of them, of course, micro business owners, have closed their doors and will not open again. And for me, I started doing the math, because some of these business owners employ people. So I'm thinking 60 million, that means there might be another 30 to 20 million that you have to throw in that number who are impacted by the closing of those businesses. And on top of that, you take into account how it impacts communities, right?
Right.
And so kind of getting back to that social conscious activist roots, and also marrying entrepreneurship with that, as you take inventory of the entrepreneur ecosystem here in Detroit, right? What are some of the other things that you believe entrepreneurs need to be about in terms of either thinking, or in terms of their behaviors, or in terms of those who have agency and means? What type of resources need to be infused in the community to get us back to a healthy, thriving entrepreneurship base again? What are some of the suggestions or thoughts on that?
Another excellent question. I mean, we are we are living in unprecedented times right now. Unprecedented. This is a global health pandemic, and nobody's heard, seen a coronavirus. What was that last year, right? So to that, I think there are several angles that you address this, and I don't want to have the discussion or present what I'm saying in terms of this is the silver bullet, right? but these are some thoughts. First, like I said, I'm very intentional about equity and justice issues. And our government, and I'm going to get to what we can do, but I'm just going to have to say this, okay? Our government, has a long history of institutionalizing inequity. And some political people, like to say, we bring yourself up by your bootstraps, we're capitalists, we're not socialists, and blah, blah, blah. But, there are economic policies, long-standing policies that subsidize certain businesses, and
Yep.
Access to capital is a justice issue. And we've seen how that has been rolling out with the availability and approval of these payroll protection loans. We saw that the wealthiest companies, in the United States gobbled up their share first, even to the degree that public outcry had to shame some into returning that money because they clearly were not the target the program was designed for, right? But a lot of them didn't, right? And we saw smaller businesses, a lot of businesses of color submitting those applications, getting denied, turned away, given the runaround, and not being able to access that capital, at the same rate as other businesses. So I do think, and this is where businesses, in different chambers and associations, entrepreneurs do bring, and you should feel comfortable raising policy issues to lawmakers and stakeholders' attention, most definitely, So if you're a small business, let's use Detroit as an example, right? There are entrepreneurs that have been holding down businesses in the community forever with little to no assistance, and some other newer enterprise comes in and gets accolades and financial resources. You absolutely should bring that to someone's attention. So I think there is an institutional piece that needs to be played here, that is separate and distinct from our role as entrepreneurs. But I think we would be remiss in not recognizing that there is an institutional role in this recovery. And we need to make sure that's an equitable role in terms of small businesses, in terms of women-owned businesses, in terms of businesses owned by people of color, that when the policies are set to prop up certain businesses, it needs to be equitable. Now, what can we do, to support each other? I know now one thing, just a simple thing, is just being more conscious of supporting businesses that still have their doors open, making a list, just in my own little private world, I've been, strategically thinking about what businesses, I want to just show them all the love and support. I don't want them to close. And I'm going to make a special trip to do business with them, so we can pledge our support before you click buy on Amazon. Just look around, take 5 more minutes, think, do I really need it tomorrow? Can I take 5 more minutes? Can I wait 2 or 3 more days and share that wealth and circulate those dollars in my community? So that's something we could all do. Prepare our purchase list and look around and see who you can support and patronize. And just support each other, promote other businesses like you're doing on this platform. Expose other businesses out there, circulate the wealth or opportunities to earn wealth. And then for business owners, I think right now it is one of those, oh, we lost John.
I'll be back. It'll probably.
What you do?
It happens.
Right. But we need to, I also think that we, as an entrepreneur, now is the time to it might be a pivot time, a time to adjust, a time to integrate new strategies in terms of technology, communication, curbside pickup, just recognizing where people are, right? Because you have to provide a product or a service that people need, that's at a certain price point. So, I know people are already out there of doing, these internal evaluations. And if you have it, now's definitely the time. And again, not being afraid to change, not being afraid to mix it up. These are one of those times where it's almost like you don't really have a choice, honestly. So it's best to, I think, just kind of tackle problems, or challenges kind of head on, do a realistic assessment of where you are, where you want to be, and the appropriate actions, that can be taken in the context of a pandemic to get you there. So now is the time to take inventory. Now is the time to not be afraid to change or to pivot. And ask for your support. I mean, now is the time for community to step up. Other just basic things that I've done over the years, cross referrals, find an entrepreneur buddy. I'm going to put your logo on my site. I'm going to refer you. You're going to refer me. Get a buddy. Okay. Do some cross referrals. And I think Jawan raised an excellent point. Give something away. Knowledge, you can share information. Information brings individuals in the door. Okay. Share information. Be generous. People are online right now. Give something, because giving something will, open doors to additional avenues for you. So that's what I would say.
Perfect. So as we are wrapping this up, we kind of end with a few, we end with a couple last questions to keep things positive and going, even though you've kept this very positive this whole time. So
you're a good interviewer.
One thing we always ask our guests are, what would you consider to be either your superpower or your spirit animal?
Superpower, spirit animal. Superpower. I think the largest superpower. I haven't thought about myself in that way of having a superpower, but let me think here. I would say, I guess ability to. I think courage goes a long way.
Absolutely.
Courage goes a long. So I would say that's my superpower. Being courageous.
I would agree with that completely.
Yeah.
What would be, and I know it might be hard to summarize this because you have given us so many nuggets of wisdom of things that, especially depending on where someone is in their journey, that they can latch on to this point, that point. But what would be one extremely very important lesson you'd want to leave our listeners with regarding entrepreneurship and moving forward and wherever they at in their journey? What would be one thing you'd want them to take away?
Oh my goodness. Well, let's just tag on to the question you asked me about superpower, and I said courage. And one quote that comes to mind, this is just paraphrasing, I'm sure it's not the exact quote, but paraphrasing is like, courage is not the absence of fear, but it's proceeding despite the fear. So to keep going, it starts up here. It really does. So be brave. I know it's the pandemic, it's the health. We don't know where the economy is going, up, down. Economists say all kind of different things, have different opinions. But be brave. Once you've kind of centered in and you have identified a path, that's peaceful for you, that you want to align your business with, go for it. go for it. I mean, most of the individuals that I look up to and draw inspiration from are people with unusual paths, and who didn't go the usual route, but found peace, found prosperity, walking their own trail, doing their own path. So be bold, go for it. Don't sell yourself short. You have to be your biggest champion, and when you're centered, when you're confident, that energy radiates from around you. You'll have what you need. Just keep going forward. Be bold, be brave. And that's what I would leave people with.
Perfect. Tonya, what is the best way if someone wants to reach out to you, to connect with you further, to talk with you more, to maybe participate in some of the services and things that you offer? What would be the best way for them to reach out to you?
I'll give you a couple ways. First, good old-fashioned phone, 313-528-9514. Again, that's 313-528-9514. And you can look for me on LinkedIn. Send me a chat, send me a message. Do have a Facebook page. Look for me at TonyaMyersPhillips.com on Facebook. I'm also on Instagram, Twitter. I have a website, TonyaMyersPhillips.com. Some things need to be updated, but I check it. Just shoot me a message. So, call or just look at social media, TonyaMyersPhillips.com. Start from LinkedIn, Facebook, take your choice. I will get the message. And I look forward to connecting with listeners, viewers, and staying connected to the two of you. You guys are holding it down. So.
Absolutely. We need to have you back. There were still a lot of questions that I'm sure we could dive deeper into and do a whole nother hour on, or 2 or 3. So thank you again, Tonya, for taking the time to chat with us, chat with our viewers, and we really appreciate it so much.
Thank you. I appreciate you.
All right, Next Up Social family, we are wrapping up. Make sure, again, if you haven't subscribed, please do so. Please reach out to Tonya if you have any questions. Otherwise, we will see you next week. Bye-bye.